Holiday weekend in the NFL is officially here. Forget your Friday plans. We eat, we enjoy, unless you're a Jets fan. Jacksonville wins this one 19-3 as we kick Week 16 in the NFL. The Jaguars now 3 in a row and 4 of their last 5 as they move to within a half game of the Tennessee Titans for the moment in that South divisional lead. Jags now the odds-on favorite to win that division. More on that in a moment. But as for this one, Trevor Lawrence, 20 of 31 for 229. No touchdowns, no interceptions, but did enough. Zach Wilson, on the other hand, did not. He was actually yanked in the second half of this one. In relief came Chris Streveler, elevated from the practice squad on Thursday, and saw some meaningful time down the stretch. But Duval is here to stay. Now 2 straight road wins for the Jags for the first time since 2017. All right, let's dive in with CBS NFL writer Tyler Sullivan. Tyler, plenty to get to here. I know the lion's share of the conversation is going to pertain to the play of Zach Wilson, but let's start on the winning side here. Jags now 3 in a row, winners in 4 of their last 5, odds-on favorite to take the division. What have you seen over these last few weeks, specifically this 60 minutes of football, that gives you good feelings about the Jaguars moving forward?
Yeah, it's the continued ascension of Trevor Lawrence into what we all thought he was going to be. I mean, this is a quarterback that we were comparing to Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning, John Elway when he was coming out of Clemson. Obviously, last year was a massive speed bump that was Urban Meyer. This year, it's all getting back on track with Doug Peterson at the helm, and you see the polished play. You see what that talent is oozing out of this player. This is not great conditions, and he was extremely efficient in this game. 20 of 31, like you said, didn't throw for a touchdown, but he was making plays with his legs too, and that's something that's a very underrated piece of his game. He's so big, but he's smooth as a runner, and obviously was able to use his length to go over the goal line there and score that touchdown. But to me, it's just the continued ascension of Trevor Lawrence that is really helping this team turn things around. I mean, it is remarkable. This team was well under 500, it feels like, a month ago, and now they're coming down the stretch and they control their own destiny. They went out, they win the division, and it feels like things are lining up. Tennessee's banged up. Ryan Tannehill is not playing this week. They're playing as good as they could possibly play at this point, and their defense is starting to shut down their opponent as well. So it's Lawrence, but it's everything else is starting to click around them as well.
It's an interesting illustration here of players making plays on those given days, but also the larger storylines that surround them, because this was sort of a syllabus day, look to your left, look to your right, one of you will not be here situation. Some figures floating around, first-round quarterback success rate, meaning a second contract with that same team, around 40% hit rate, and the 60% was also represented here in Zach Wilson. What is Wilson's fatal flaw right now? I mean, it is so disjointed, so drawn up in the sand, ugly, that sometimes it's hard to pinpoint where he has gone wrong.
Yeah, you know, for me, it's his presence in the pocket or lack thereof. You saw it in this game. There was really not a lot there. You look in that first drive when they got the fumble off of Trevor Lawrence and they got the ball within the red zone, it was just a train wreck, and he could not sense anything. He got a huge sack that he just did not feel whatsoever. And this is a continuation of what we've seen from Zach Wilson in the pocket. You go back to last week against Detroit, he had a passer rating of 48.3 inside the pocket. That was worst of any quarterback last week. It's just, when you're a quarterback in the NFL, you should live in the pocket. Should be your bread and butter in a clean pocket. He only really is thriving when things kind of break down. He's able to use his raw ability on kind of a breakdown play. That doesn't happen on every single snap. More often than not, you're just dropping back in the pocket and you have to make a throw. And so far, we just haven't seen that from Zach Wilson, and it's ultimately seemingly going to be his demise here in New York.
It is if this, then that season, and if the Jets were to lose here on Thursday Night Football, which they did. The Bengals punched their ticket to the playoffs, so that's another seat taken by Cincinnati, your AFC champion from a year ago. Digging a little deeper here on Wilson, what do the Jets do? I want your contingency plan, and if this, then that at the quarterback position. Next week, what do they do at quarterback? Next year, what do they do at quarterback?
Yeah, as long as we go down this season, it's the depending health of Mike White. If not, I guess you start talking about Chris Streveler. But, as solid as he was under duress, it's not like he's a prolific quarterback that we saw either. He wasn't throwing the ball particularly well. If Mike White isn't able to go, I think you lean towards Joe Flacco to kind of stabilize this team, stabilize the locker room to end the year. But if we're talking big picture, it does feel like it's over for Zach Wilson in New York. I don't want to say that it's over for him in the NFL because you never know what can happen with these resets. Obviously, you saw our former quarterback of the New York Jets, Geno Smith, completely revitalize his career in Seattle. So you don't necessarily want to slam the door shut on him just yet. But in New York, it does feel like it's over. It feels like the team doesn't play hard around him. Doesn't feel like the fans are embracing him. If you heard the boo birds in this game tonight, and ultimately it just feels like a change of scenery is necessary for Zach Wilson. So when you go beyond that, I don't know if Mike White's going to be the answer. Maybe he is for 2023, but I do think that you look down the road to maybe a Jimmy Garoppolo, who obviously has some history with Robert Saleh during their shared time in San Francisco. Maybe Derek Carr becomes available if the Las Vegas Raiders move on from him. There are veteran quarterbacks that might be available, and obviously you could go back to the well and bring in a quarterback at the NFL draft. To me, this roster feels ready. If there's a quarterback out there in the league right now that you can plug and play, the rest of this roster is ready to contend for a playoff spot. So for me, that would be my first course of action if you're the front office this offseason, is to try to find a veteran quarterback that can just stabilize things and give you something similar that Mike White had. Because if you just get average quarterback play, this team is ready to contend for the playoffs.
Yeah, the numbers sort of bear that out. And interestingly enough, I mean, the pop you heard from the fans and the juice you felt from the team when Streveler came in sort of feels like anybody but Zach is going to get the most out of this Jets team right now. Not that it's a scapegoat, not that it's a reason for his inefficiencies. Did you take any issue with the play calling from LaFleur in this one? It felt like a disjointed attack from the jump in this.
Yeah, I mean, this team couldn't protect a lot in this game, and they couldn't run the football. I mean, we're looking at the quarterback that's coming in under duress. He's logging most of the rushing yards. Before that, it felt like they had less than 10 rushing yards as a team. So to me, obviously, the quarterback play is made easier if all of a sudden you can run the football effectively, set up play action, and things fall into place from there. It ultimately didn't happen. It was poor conditions too. Obviously, that alters things when you have wind, when you have rain, when you have cold temperatures. But to me, it's still, if you're an elite quarterback in Zach Wilson, or you want to be an elite quarterback in Zach Wilson, obviously a number 2 overall pick, you have to rise up in those moments. Not only early in the game when you're in the red zone and you basically go 3 and out and you're stuck to a field goal only because you were given great field position. But you look later on in the game, in the second half, you had 3 and out to begin the second half, and then the next possession, you got the ball at the 40 because the ball went out of bounds on the kickoff following a Jaguars field goal, and you went 3 and out again. If you're not capitalizing on your opponent's mistakes when they give you good field position, you're not a very good quarterback.
To your point, Streveler led the Jets in rushing yards with 54. Next closest was Ty Johnson with 7. They totaled 66 as a team here on Thursday Night Football. Let's get back to the Jags here because they look like primetime players in this moment and moving forward, much of the thanks to the play of Trevor Lawrence as of late. Vegas currently positioning the Titans as second favorites behind the Jags to win that division. And when you look at the health of Ryan Tannehill, the roads ahead, do you share that opinion that this is the odds-on favorite to win the division in the Jacksonville Jaguars?
Yeah, absolutely. The Jacksonville Jaguars should be the favorite to win this division, and they could be a sneaky, dangerous team in the AFC. I'm not saying that they're going to go win the Super Bowl or anything like that, but when you have Trevor Lawrence and the talent that this kid has, anything is technically possible. I mean, he is somebody that reminds me a lot of Andrew Luck, who obviously went deep into the playoffs his first year in the league and was continuing to ascend and bringing the Indianapolis Colts to the AFC Championship. Again, I don't think that that's going to happen this year, but you look big picture at this team, and I think that that's what you have to do with the Jacksonville Jaguars with the quarterback that they have in Trevor Lawrence. They could be a threat. You could start talking about them in the same breath as Cincinnati, Buffalo, Kansas City in a few years' time if we continue to see the ascension of Trevor Lawrence. But for this season, they should absolutely be the favorite out of the AFC South. They control their own destiny. They win out. And right now, Lawrence is playing as good as any quarterback in the NFL. And defensively, coming into this game, they were already sneaking in to the top 10 in terms of second half fewest points allowed, and they did good against the Jets tonight, again, under different circumstances with the quarterback, but this defense is starting to get home as well, which is scary.
They are now minus money to win the South preseason, 7-1 prior to week 1 to win the division. If you're holding the ticket, good on you, and a tip of the cap here to Doug Peterson for getting the thing turned around after back-to-back years selecting first overall. Could be playoff bound here in 2022. Let's take a look at that AFC playoff picture because implications on both sides here. We now have a divisional favorite notching another win and waiting for a Titans result. They do own that head-to-head with the Jaguars having won the previous meeting. Week 18 will be the second meeting, so a big one circled there in the South. But as for the Jets, 7-8 on a bit of a losing skid here. Was this the last gasp in your eyes on Thursday night?
Yeah, this is pretty much the nail in the coffin for any playoff hopes for the New York Jets in 2022. You have teams that are surging up like Jacksonville. New England's middling, but you still have Los Angeles, who, again, you still have to talk about them. It's very similar to what we're seeing with Jacksonville in terms of an elite quarterback kind of thrusting his team into the playoff picture in Justin Herbert. The Miami Dolphins, yeah, they've kind of come back down to earth over the last few weeks, but I do think that they will still be in that playoff conversation. New England, you could throw out as well. I don't believe them to be a legitimate playoff threat at this point, especially with Cincinnati coming up and their schedule, how things look. But for the New York Jets, it is imperative that they needed to win out and probably get some help to make the postseason. They lose this game tonight, I don't see their playoff hopes really kind of coming to fruition at any point this season.
Tyler Sullivan, a happy holidays to you and yours. For this, we celebrate NFL football. Appreciate you, pal. And don't forget, the conversation continues on the Pick Six podcast. It's the premier pod in the entire NFL. With Will Brinson, John Breach, Ryan Wilson, breaking it down day in and day out with the latest news and notes on the league you love. Download and subscribe to the Pick Six podcast.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.